Hey pals, I'm Megan Hatcher-Mays, Director of Democracy Policy at Indivisible and the host of Impeachment Daily, the only daily impeachment recap program that's just a Tony Award away from achieving EGOT status. Impeachment Daily exists to demystify the impeachment process and let you know how you can stay involved in this fight. This week was absolutely bananas from start to finish. So today we are going to wrap things up by recapping the truly devastating testimony of Fiona Hill, who appeared in front of the House Intelligence Committee yesterday, plus the testimony of David Holmes, who really, truly did overhear Gordon Sondland tell Donald Trump that the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, loves your ass. So let's get right into it with our first segment, which is called What Just Happened, where we recap what we know. So yesterday we heard from two people, Fiona Hill, who was the Director of European and Russian Affairs for the National Security Council, and a guy named David Holmes, who is a top aide at the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv. They both testified extensively to the fact that Rudy Giuliani is waist deep in this mess. It was very clear that he was running a shadow diplomacy effort for Trump in order to get Ukraine to publicly announce investigations in exchange for meetings with Trump in the White House, not to mention about $400 million in military aid that the Ukrainians need to fight back against Russia. So David Holmes was the guy who overheard a phone call between Gordon Sondland, the ambassador to the European Union, and Donald Trump. You, of course, remember that earlier this week, Sondland completely flippity-flopped and testified that pretty much everyone in the White House, from Donald Trump to Mike Pence to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo all the way down, they all knew that Trump was trying to bribe Ukraine into digging up dirt on the Bidens. Anyway, in what has become one of my favorite stories of this whole sordid saga, Holmes testified that Sondland called Trump from a very busy restaurant in Kyiv, just like on a cell phone, not even on a secure line, but Sondland called Trump like this. Trump was apparently yelling so loudly into the phone about the crimes he wanted to do that he wanted to hold up that aid in exchange for the investigations, that Holmes could hear the conversation. Like, it was so loud that old Gordon here was like, ugh, like wincing. But it was so loud. Trump was not on speakerphone. He was just yelling about the crimes so loudly that Holmes could overhear it all, which was crazy. But the really devastating stuff came from Fiona Hill. She first came out swinging against the tinfoil hat brigade on the GOP side of the committee room. These guys have no legitimate defense of Donald Trump. Like, he's been committing crimes since day one, and lately he's just given up completely on any pretense that he's not. He's just admitting to his corruption at pretty much every turn. So the GOP has pivoted pretty exclusively to peddling in conspiracy theories. And one extremely dumb one that they really like is this idea that it was Ukraine that interfered in the 2016 elections and that they did it to help Hillary Clinton, which is straight up land of make-believe stuff. It was not Ukraine. It was Russia, and they interfered to help Trump because we live in hell. So one of the first things that Hill said after she was sworn in was to denounce these Republicans who traffic in the conspiracy theories. And she said, based on questions and statements I have heard, some of you on this committee appear to believe that Russia and its security services did not conduct a campaign against our country, and that perhaps somehow, for some reason, Ukraine did. This is a fictional narrative. She went on to say, I would ask that you please not promote politically driven falsehoods that so clearly advance Russian interests. So that's Fiona Hill telling Republicans on the committee not just to stop lying, but to stop working as unwitting Russian assets. Off to a pretty good start, right? So next, she lit into Gordon Sondland. Remember that Sondland did a pretty good job of throwing pretty much everybody in Trump's administration under the bus. Here's the bus, by the way. But Sondland did hold back on specifics anytime his own culpability was on the line. Like, oh, sure, yeah. Everyone in the White House knew that Rudy Giuliani was running a scheme in Ukraine, he said. And yes, Sondland and others were directed by Trump himself to help Rudy achieve the outcome that Trump wanted. Bad for Trump, right? But Sondland's defense of himself basically was, hey, I was just doing what I was told. I did what Trump told me to do. I was trying to do normal foreign policy stuff in Ukraine, and I didn't think I could do that unless I ran this scheme with Rudy Giuliani. So don't send me to jail. If I did something wrong, it was only because Trump told me to, right? Well, Fiona Hill dispensed with that nonsense pretty expertly yesterday, actually. She was asked by the Republican lawyer, Steve Castor. He's the guy who always looks like he's in a great deal of pain, which he probably is. Castor asked her about a disagreement that she'd had with Gordon Sondland. And she said she was annoyed because Sondland, who is the ambassador to the European Union, not Ukraine, was not coordinating his activities in Ukraine with people in the administration who are actually tasked with working on Ukraine issues. He was looping in Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, Mick Mulvaney, who is Trump's chief of staff and who is in trouble, I think, and John Bolton, who is Fiona Hill's boss, but nobody who's actually directly responsible for Ukraine issues. So here's where Hill really dropped the hammer on Sondland. It was pretty beautiful. Here's what she said. What I was angry about was that he wasn't coordinating with us. I now actually realize, having listened to his deposition, that he was absolutely right, that he wasn't coordinating with us because we weren't doing the same thing that he was doing. And she continued, we have a robust interagency process that deals with Ukraine. It includes Mr. Holmes. It includes Ambassador Taylor, who is the top diplomat to Ukraine. It includes a whole load of other people. But it struck me yesterday when you put up the screen with Ambassador Sondland's emails, and who was on these emails, and he said, these are the people who need to know. That he was absolutely right, because he was being involved in a domestic political errand, and we were being involved in national security foreign policy. And those two things had just diverged. So he was correct. Let's break that down, right? So here's what she's saying, in other words. The reason that Gordon Sondland wasn't keeping her filled in on what was going on in Ukraine is because she and Sondland weren't working on the same thing. They weren't trying to achieve the same objective. Fiona Hill was working for the United States. Gordon Sondland was working for Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani. Remember, Republicans keep saying that, hey, Trump has broad power to pursue whatever foreign policy objectives he wants, right? None of this is a big deal. He can recall Marie Yovanovitch from her post in Ukraine. He can withhold foreign aid if he wants to. He can do whatever he wants, right? But what Trump was doing was not foreign policy. It was an extortion plot. And it's been confirmed by nearly everyone else who was involved in it, right? This was the best line, I think, from Hill's testimony, though. She said, I did say to him, Ambassador Sondland, Gordon, I think this is all going to blow up. And here we are. She was right about that one. They should have listened to Fiona Hill, but of course they didn't. Something interesting that I found out about her and reading up on her the other day is that Trump once mistook her for a secretary, right? So of course he didn't listen to her because he just doesn't think that women are capable of holding high-level positions in his government. And if he had listened to her, we might not be in this mess, Donald. Of course he didn't. So that was this week. It was crazy, right? Next week is Thanksgiving week. I hope you have good plans planned. I hope that mashed potatoes are involved. But if you're looking for some fun impeachment-related activities before Turkey Day, you can, of course, go to impeachnow.org, where you can RSVP to events that your members of Congress might be holding, or register your own event, especially if your member of Congress is a Republican. You can do that, or you could just relax. I don't know. It's up to you. What do I know? You can also go, we're still planning our big mass mobilization effort for the night before the final impeachment vote in the House. That's impeachment eve, if you will. You can go to impeach.org and you can pre-register for an event. As soon as we know the date of the vote, we will let you know, and then we will all rush out into the streets to show the world how much we think Trump should be impeached and removed. So I hope you go to impeach.org and pre-register for your event. Thank you for tuning in to Impeachment Daily. I will see you on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. And then Thursday, I do have mashed potatoes plans. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.